then sometimes we leave the recording off for a little chit chat and stuff too. But as I was just saying to John, now that I'm setting up Clickup right off the bat for regeneration opportunity for Cardano, because it feels like after this 12 months of experience with Cardano4Climate, it's like, okay, what are the things that make life a lot easier? And having the platforms in place that we can all start using is helpful, because we spend a lot of time getting used to Google. Jem had come along and says, here, let's use Confluence, which is very similar to Clickup. And I wasn't ready. So I dove into the Google documents and I'm creating everything from scratch, you know, spreadsheets and, you know, you name it. And now I'm ready to figure out something that's a lot more helpful. And we just had some major exercises and experiences in creating tasks for events. And it's, you know, in a Google spreadsheet, it's this list. And then it's like, as soon as I started going through those, it's like, oh, but that one's related to this other task.
Right.
And you can't do that other task until you've done this one. And so I took that spreadsheet and I turned it into a CSV file and uploaded it to Clickup. Not perfect, because the initial setup wasn't easy to follow, but all that information from Google got sent over to Clickup, and it's not, you know, start from the beginning again.
Right.
Plus, we're also using Discord for tasks for dework. So people can go, I'd like to upload a video and do timestamps on it. This is a job that we do all the time, and we'll get gimbals paid for it. Boom, click on it, and they do it. It's harder. I don't want to even go there with that dework in Discord myself. It's like, I'd rather just know that I've got stuff to do and I do it. Keeping track of it, timekeeping, it's not my thing. But I know that I have to set it up. I want to go away next week.
Right.
I have to be able to set it up to make it so that I'm not the heroic leader and doing everything.
Right. Yes, you got to be able to delegate. Yeah.
So, and also give away the work for other people to come on board and rise up, right? Instead of this top down, well, I need you to do this task, you do that one, you do that one. We're working more on this Ikigai method, where it's like, what do you love to do? What are you good at to do? And what do you want? What does a community need? And what do you want to get paid for? So,
and you know, that approach works really well as long as you have what the roles are and the domains and the artifacts spelled out in writing.
Exactly. It begins with at least the first iteration. And that's where, you know, if we become a top-down organization, we set stuff in stone. Because we're a ground up, I'm thinking, how do we start with something and allow it to evolve over time? Even the task itself, you know, what if we change to a different platform? There's got to be a way to say, I'm going to come in and work on this task and change it. And that person gets paid for it, recognized for that work, and we get a constant improvement of the whole system over time, rather than
and keeping it in writing is important, you know, on all that.
In writing and up to date, because otherwise it's like, okay, everything's here, and I'll send you a copy of this, and this is what we use from now till eternity, and it doesn't work anymore that way. So, you know, in the regeneration opportunity for Cardano, it's like, how do we set up these platforms to make life easier to begin with?
But there's another platform to mention. Did I ever show you Weaver? Okay, there's a platform I've been working on for quite some time with a guy who's been a senior manager at Fujitsu Advanced Software Lab, and we call it Circle Weaver, and we've put a lot of effort into it to make the processes of having meetings and keeping records and action items and all that, it's there now. We're still trying to make the interface go smoothly, but we're getting to the point now where we're ready to start promoting it. It's kind of like my same complaint with ClickUp. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like
it
if
doesn't
somebody
work for you, but because of your overall system, this is how you see it work.
right. And so but it does work. If you know how it works really well. And I was thinking the other day, it's like if somebody came up to me and said, you know, that old computer keyboard you have, the A, S, D, F, and so forth. Well, I've got a better keyboard that goes A, Q, R, and it does these things. I'm going, no, we want my A,
don't change, please. No. Yeah.
And that ASDF has been there for 120 years, something like that.
Well, they call it QWERTY now because it's the QWERTY,
It's
the
the
first
QWERTY thing, yeah.
Yeah,
But
QWERTY, but
you can have QWERTY. I want my ASDF.
yeah, but it's just the next row down. So I'm
I
not
know,
sure.
I know.
So
I'm
maybe they're
teasing.
the same, but I learned on that it's like metric and imperial measurements. You know, depends on where you came in history and what these things are you're taught.
Right.
Now, this circle weaver though sounds absolutely amazing as far as keeping agendas and records done that way. That would be, I could see doing both the tasks in ClickUp for everything that's repeatable. And you create templates and you want to onboard people into the community and engage them in work that we need done and they can also get paid for.
Right.
But the agenda stuff, that ClickUp is not good for that.
Right. And trying to do it in Google Docs and you end up with stuff all over the place.
Oh my God, don't even get me started on that one.
Right. Right. It's so that's what, let me see if I can give you I'll go with my commercial hat on here.
Do you want to share screen and show me a little bit about it?
Oh, sure.
I'm going to just make you co-host so that you can share.
Okay.
And then you're doing a blurb on a recording, and because this is the beginning of this new community coming together, and it's like, how do we work together? You know, what platforms do we have? What platforms are we familiar with? And
okay, so I've got the old screen share going here, and
are you going to Iran by any chance?
Iran? No. This is I don't know why it says Iran Airbnb. No, that's I was looking for Airbnbs in the Las Vegas area. I'm taking my wife out to see the Grand Canyon in a little bit, and actually next week. She's never been to the Grand Canyon.
You mentioned that my memory is tinkling a little bit and going, yeah, I remember being to the Grand Canyon and being close to the edge, and it's like, oh my God, I'm not getting anywhere within 30 feet of that edge because I'm scared of heights, you know. And
well, I have a memory of visiting the Grand Canyon when I was 6 years old, and the main memory I have of it is looking down, and about 200 feet down there was a ledge there with a tricycle on it. I'm thinking, oh my God, some poor kid fell over here and banged the tricycle up. And where's his body? And that was my main memory of that.
Field staff, that's the place that's close to the Grand Canyon. My memory is a little bit older than that, and I was on a group with a volunteer group, and we got off the bus, and it had started raining, and people were grumbling about it. And I think at that point is when I started thinking about there's nothing you can change about the weather except your attitude and your location. Now, since climate change, it's like, oh yeah, we can actually change the weather. You know, we have more control, but at that time, 30, 40 years ago, it was more, rather simple. And yeah, anyways, you can sing in the rain or you can complain about it.
Right.
But
here, this is the Weaver homepage here. The website is still, we're redoing it right now, so it's kind of like a mess over here in this part. But so there's all kinds of things. Probably There's different workspaces. This is organized into workspaces. And so let me go first to my main page here. Action items. So here's a list of my action items, meetings coming up. I've pretty well responded, need to complete something here. There's different workspaces that I participate and hang out in. And so that's kind of like it. And I'm going to go into this workspace here, which happens to be the board workspace. And this allows you, we have a whole bunch of like little test things and all that. There's some sandbox things, but it allows you to do a hierarchy here. So here's the Weaver updates or whatever. And then you can go here, and this is the meeting that's happening here. This is the one we use for our weekly meetings. And you can see there's all kinds of meetings that we call different things in here. And you can, they're all just there at a glimpse. There are, well, I'll first go into the meetings here. Let's go in and see what this is on September 14th. It's in planning mode. I'm going to go over here. This is the overview. I'm going to go over here to edit. And this agenda is already set up.
Oh,
So
nice. So it's a template.
If I go here, well, I can, if I want to copy this agenda for the next time, I simply go over here and clone the meeting.
Nice.
Or several things are there. So what you've set up, you don't lose. You don't have to do templates. You just copy from the previous one. So here is the admin and bug fixes. And so there's a bunch of stuff we have written here. There's a place to take notes up here. If I want to include an action item, then I go here and I can do existing or not. So here's an action item. I can go here.
There's a task from
there's a task that we know we need to go over.
Mm-hmm.
If there are attachments, then I can go over here and say, all right, we need this one right here. So that then becomes an attachment that we can look at. We'll just click here and open it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so there it is, access the URL. And so here's some slideshows that we were doing. And so that all just comes right in.
Which looks like a really cool presentation, by the way, here.
Oh yeah, I just picked that out at random. This is just like an intro to sociocracy.
Which would be a great thing to run through with the whole group.
Yeah, we could do that. We can easily go back to it. But all those things can be packed in there. If you want, you can go over here to topics, and
now you're still in the presentation for some reason.
I should be in. Oh, it says your screen share is paused.
Yeah, so you're paused on the slide deck somehow. So if you stop share and go back to another screen, you should come
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah. Something overruled it.
It did. So here we are. I clicked over here on topics.
Yep.
And there's a number of topics. And the thing about topics is it allows you to do asynchronous decision making. So this is probably more complicated than I want to do for an example. Let me go here.
Like even an event, creating a new event would be assistance brainstorming topic.
Well, here we are. We're getting ready. We've been running this for free, and it still is for free. And we're saying this. We've got to get to the point where, it's like Zoom.
It becomes sustainable.
It becomes sustainable. So what is it we charge for? And so this is the question here, and then there's some postings he's made. And if I want to make, he could have set up a round right here. Let's say, here's my proposal. My proposal after the discussion is this, and I'll send it without an email here. And suddenly the three people that are meeting now have this, and they can say, oh, I'll go in here and I'll say,
wow,
sure.
Love it.
But don't forget forget this. Oh, I can't even spell forget. Speaking of keyboards, ASDF,
DET.
forget.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. And I'm going to, I have an
Consent.
objection to that. Well,
Right.
okay, I'll consent, but I'm going to say I object just
Yep.
for the heck of it. It shows up as an objection.
Ah,
And then we can open up a new box if we want. Let's go around and talk about that or whatever, but it can all be done asynchronously.
very nice.
And
Very nice. Oh
so
my
there's all that
goodness.
stuff in there. There's action items. Your decision list is over here. And so you can keep a record of when your decisions are and when things need to be reviewed by. We're a little bit behind on some of those, it looks like. There's a way to send email out. If you want to go into roles, you can, and you want to look somebody for a role, like facilitator here, you can go into this and you can have a role election for that. And there's a whole template for doing that.
My goodness.
And you kind of really need to look at the training stuff. So there's some training videos and all that sort of thing. But that's the kind of a quick run through on the whole thing
Well,
for this workspace.
it makes it so, amazing when it's connected to your whole system, the whole platform. It makes so much sense. I'm trying to figure out how, with the tasks, not to repeat things, like we did it in Excel or in a spreadsheet now, Google spreadsheet, and now we're shifting it to something else, to Clickup. Do we need to move all that information to this program, or is there ways that we can still
No,
use
I
Clickup
think ClickUp, if I
for
were in here and I had
tasks?
stuff in ClickUp, down where it says action items, I would go in here, topics for blog posts. This was a topic here. So rather than go and grabbing one of those action items, I would probably just go down here in the description and would say
See Clickup.
a ClickUp link
Mm-hmm.
like that, and
Yep.
then it would take you right to it. And ideally, we'll be able to, at some point, be able to connect this directly to ClickUp and things like that.
Yeah, because it's got a integration with Discord, with Zoom, and with Google, with Excel. So
right,
it'll happen that we can start using the best of everything and not having to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
In every way. I think this would be an amazing way to start our first meetings in Weaver, with Regeneration opportunity for Cardano. Would you be ready, do you think?
Yes. We are. We're ready. We continue to work on all kinds of things with different parts of the interface, and we have somebody who just got her master's degree in computer interface who used Weaver, the critique of Weaver, as basis of her master's degree. So she's helping out, and so we're continuing to improve interface with her guidance. So yes, it's ready to use. There's a lot. Do
you need an example outside community to work it through to?
Oh yeah, it's no cost. No cost.
So we can either be the sample one that run through. Little Fish is doing that with the Ikigai model. And that's great because it's a win-win. It balances the equation by giving you more material and feedback, and we're not taking from something. But otherwise, we do have a small budget for subscriptions, and down the road, maybe there's a place where we use this in all of our meetings in C4C and on. The other thing is, once we start working on this with this particular challenge right from the very beginning, from the scratch, we can start implementing this also in our C4C meetings, which are 4 every week. You
can see the list of, we got lots of users here. But it's just been experimental, but we've got a lot of people signing in and using this. Some sign in and don't use it. A lot of other ones, have lots of things open, workspaces open, and all that kind of stuff. So,
oh, I see Forrest there.
Yes, Forrest is there. Yes. Yep.
Did you meet him at one of our events, or did you know him from before?
No, I've known Forrest for 5 years, something like that.
Wow.
I remember when Forrest said, "Look, there's this Bitcoin stuff, and it's going for $1,000, but you can buy part of a coin. Buy $400 or $500 worth of this coin." And of course, I was like, like this, and I had no idea. But he's a very far-seeing guy.
Very interesting, and because I think the first time I ever saw his name was at a Regeneration, regenerative agriculture, Regeneration. I don't know. It was one of our events a year ago, and he was there for Tyler. Tyler has been following him for a long time. Tyler Case from Cardano4Climate, and yeah.
Forrest is definitely an important user of the system.
Beautiful. So either way, like if you need us to start paying, it would be a group decision. We don't have any.
It would be, what would be wonderful would be for us to say, if you'll pay us something, we will like put you on the top of the pile, and we'll make changes and adapt this thing, and make modifications you want to specialize it for what you want. And so that would be what would be great.
Okay, so in the meantime, we'll balance it out by feedback, working through the program as a brand new community. Absolutely no real connection otherwise, other than being interested in this same challenge. We've got new members that I've never met before.
Right.
And like I said in my message, it's like, what's the plan? And it's like, well, the plan is to give up leadership as soon as possible.
I have a suggestion: redesign it, rewire it, redesign it so that the leadership is flowing through a more diverse structure rather than being centralized. And so the power doesn't go away, the leadership doesn't go away, but the design of it is up to you.
Perfect. Can you do you have other things? I really want to see that slide deck, but in the meantime, while we just chit chat, can you stop share for a second?
Yep.
Right now, you're this tiny little face, and I want to see more of your face.
Right. We were thinking the same thing. I was thinking, oh, I got to get this rid of the screen share here.
Yeah, but it's it's that one-on-one FaceTime, and from the very beginning, facilitating the ADA holder support group. Eye to eye, and seeing the engagement in the other person is so important. But,
yes.
So yeah, setting it up. Tell me more how we can do this. How can we set it up from the ground, right from the beginning?
Oh, well, probably the simplest thing would be for me to make an appointment with you or whoever's going to be the owner of this, like not the owner, but it's in their role to provide expert advice. So whoever that 1 or 2 or 3 people have that role, I would want to sit with them, help them get things set up so that they don't have to go through a learning period for setting it up, and then use it, and if you want to have some changes or customizations or whatever, then say, hey, here's some money to do that.
And that's with the Weaver program itself. So it would be co-facilitators of this particular challenge, whoever is interested in taking responsibility basically for the setup and the beginning of this.
And that's the distributed leadership thing, where everybody has a clear role, and you take the Weaver stuff and I'll take this over here, but there's a balance in what the commitments are.
Instead of it's one person saying, yep.
Or you do it and all that, and trying to track it. So that's, and then the way things are functioning then can be a circle meeting, or it's a meeting to say, hey, we're having trouble over here. Oh, okay, I'll take that on. I'm going to give up this role over here. You take that, or whatever. But wherever you're having meetings, whether it's an operations meeting where you're not setting policy, but you're just going through, did you do this, did you do this, or whether it's we're getting together and thinking, what do we do now, which is more of a circle meeting or a retrospective or whatever you want to call it, then this is perfectly set up for that too. But so it works to support meetings.
Fantastic, because otherwise, again, we're reinventing the wheel every time we come up with this. And I hadn't even made that separation between an operational and a brainstorming idea of a meeting and the change in it. It's just like, well, here's the agenda, add your stuff to it. Now we've got a brainstorming meeting, but that's not the way it works.
Right.
They're different. So
yes,
because that's not my area of expertise,
yeah.
I'm trying to fit the circle into the square box. So
however you do it, there are first of all, there's different levels of abstraction. Work happens at different levels of abstraction. So you may have somebody who is pounding nails in the wall in a house that's being built. You have the designer who came up with the design for that. You came up with the banker who came up with the money, who's very far removed from the guy hammering it in, but they're all building the house. And so you have to, you have those levels of abstraction with work. That's just the way work is. It has all different kinds of things. Connecting those levels of abstraction is one reason for meetings. And communicating, like the person who's overseeing 10 houses being built needs to know, where are we in house number 3? And so there needs to be some sort of communication, maybe from the foreman who's building that house. We ran into a problem here of no boards today. We were ahead of time on putting the shingles on the roof. We need some help getting those boards out here right now. And so then you have the overall manager saying, okay, I got to go solve that. But that manager, he or she, needs to know what the details of the process going on. And there's no argument about, gee, rather than pounding nails in, let's glue the boards. There's no argument about that. We got to design, this is what we're doing, but we got to get it done. That's operation stuff.
mm-hmm.
Now we've built 3 houses and we get together and we say, the way we're putting nails on the wall is having these problems. We might want to think about that before we do the other 7 houses, because this piece of the design is not working right. The boards are splitting or the whatever's happening. And so that's a retrospective meeting, a circle meeting, a policy meeting, a looking at the complexity of the situation, let's think together type meeting, whatever you call it.
It's a new iteration. It's an iteration from what was planned to begin with new information from experience, and then it turns into even something better.
Or maybe somebody comes down the road selling Trex. Don't use wood on your outside porch. That's not from experience. That's from the Trex salesman.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of trying to collect all of this complexity together so that we're doing like this with it rather than going like this with the complexity.
Right. And then it's also evolving over time instead of making the same mistakes over and over and over again. It's like, in my experience in building straw bales, you can create a design that causes you to cut bales. And that's a big job. It's resizing the bales. It's not just like with the saw.
Right.
You have to restring it, recompress it, all sorts of different things. You don't
want to do that.
So but see, in the design, you don't see that. It looks great on, because this is proportionate or whatever. But as soon as you start doing that, then it's like, oh my goodness, the experience just taught me that if the next time I design this, the timbers are spaced, exactly 2 bales apart or something else, So
and there are some really advanced disciplines to be able to do that. You can just kind of sit together and try something, but with my Bossa Nova book, Beyond Budgeting, Open Space, Sociocracy, and Agile, that we put out a few years ago, key thing we found was that people have forgotten their eighth grade classes in science. Because if you look at Cynefin will say, oh, you got complexity, you got to probe it. Well, a probe involves thinking hypotheses, experiments, publishing them. And we, in trying to teach that, found that nobody remembered in 8th grade when they had you, do a little experiment with plants and light and plants and no light and all that. And so we show them literally the 8th grade video and say, that's an experiment, that's a probe. And now you have to do it with this situation. So what happens if we order, half-size bales to begin with? Does that save us time, or is the expense more? Our hypothesis is that it saves time. Here's how we measure it. Well, we've saved a day in construction, whatever. But you put all that down and then you publish it to get critique back on it. Well, did you think of this or that? And so there's a whole discipline around doing that. It's not just we're just going to try and grope in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's interesting because the thing that you'll remember from 8th grade is the growing the plants. You won't remember that it was actually a process.
Right.
Because in 8th grade, you haven't developed your brain to that point of, possibly, maybe some people have, but you haven't really recognized it. Typing an essay is also the skill of typing itself.
Right.
There's these other layers on top that you don't really recognize.
Hypothesis, is that a kind of ice cream?
Hypothesis, yes, something like that, I'm sure. There's books and links to your work that I would love to drop in this regeneration opportunity for Cardano Telegram, just so that people can get an idea of what's going on in advance and, get feedback on that and questions and understanding. Do you feel like going through that presentation, the slide deck that you had?
Yeah.
And then just as a summary, and we'll take that, because what I'll do is I'll take this recording, put some timestamps on it. It's an exercise I'm doing for Cardano4Climate too, as a task. And and then we'll add it to the Telegram chat. Are you on a Mac?
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell because it looks a little different than me.
Right.
Than mine, I mean.
Let's see here. Where was I? I was in documents before, I think.
You have a slide deck there just directly under Help tab on the very, very top. I see it looks like a slide deck.
Oh,
it might
okay.
already be open. Yeah. Keep going. Keep going with too far. See where it says help on the very top? No, keep going to your right. There. Right there. I think that's it. Is that it?
Let's see. No, this is something else.
It's a slide deck.
This is a presentation that I'm giving in Korea coming up soon.
And that's the book you just mentioned.
Yeah. The full title of the book is Company-Wide Agility with Beyond Budgeting Open Space and Agile. That's the bossa for the bossa nova. We'll even play some music in the class, some dance music.
Nice.
Let's see here.
Sorry, it looked like it was a presentation. I figured that was the one.
It's fine. It's my 30-day free trial. Let me go into Weaver here. And
back to where you were to begin with before I led you on a rabbit hole.
That's fine. Rabbits are fun. Typical webinar. Okay, this is a typical webinar training package. Okay. So this is just a slide deck. Have you ever seen my TEDx talk about the octopuses? Which
is something that we also need the link to. Octopus, because I'll add this in the description of our video. TED Talk, right?
Yeah, let's see here. I'm just going over here because I have it in my here, compose. I have it in my signature block.
Oh, nice.
This is it right here.
Perfect. And you'll drop that in the chat.
Yeah. Oops.
Perfect. Mm. You've also got all sorts of other stuff in there. Do you want to just copy all of that?
Sure, I'll copy it all in.
And then even make appointments via Calendly.
Calendly. Yeah, I'll even put that up there. That's a great program, let me tell you.
I've got to figure that out because, yeah, we need a group one.
A group Calendly would be great because you just go in, you see immediately what date, what times and dates you have in common. You say, I want that one, and it puts it in your calendar. You don't have to double check. Do I have time available on my calendar for that?
Yeah.
I really highly recommend it.
Mm. Is it good for groups though? Like when you've got people over multiple time zones?
Yes.
Okay.
It adapts to the time zones. That does the whole thing. Yeah.
Perfect. Because I'm going to look into that because that's the other tool that we need. Because right off the bat, it's like, oh, we're Telegram back and forth. When should we meet? And you've got 10 people.
It is a pain in the neck. It's a pain in the neck to do that.
Yeah.
Looking for different things. And with Calendly, you just go in. Now, I don't know that it does it for a whole group. You can go in by individual.
Better for individual.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think it's so good for groups.
So
I'm not aware that it does it for
Doodle
groups.
poll, I think, is the group one that where you can actually see people picking times.
Yeah.
And then you see.
There's other ones besides Doodle that I like better, and I'm drawing a blank on their names at the moment. But
if you think of them, let me know, because between ClickUp and information on our governance, on the way we work together, these are all pieces that I feel like will help this community meld quicker and come together.
You can use ClickUp for individual appointments and then go to the next person and check what they have. But for groups, the problem with the Doodle poll is people have to actually look at it, and so then you have to chase after them. And so it may be that Calendly will do it for groups. I just don't know. It'd be worth
I know
investigating.
the Doodle poll is kind of like, okay, here's the dates. This is we're picking a day during the week, or 3, for different time zones. I'm happy to meet 3 times a week just to make that happen, except for 2 o'clock in the morning, I can't do.
Right. And then you've got 4 or 6 out of the 8 people who respond, and then you don't know about the other 2 people.
Well, then you might end up making 2 appointments because of time zones. So I'm willing to do that. And then, as long as we record our meetings, then we can work that way together. It is the challenge of being worldwide and across the world online.
It's tough.
It's not tough. As hard as climate change. So piece of cake, when you got the right tools, right? So, okay, if you want to run through this, I'm going to put myself on mute.
All right. What I will do first of all is I'll put the link in the chat so I don't forget to do it. If folks want to see it, copy the link.
Perfect.
And I'll put it in the chat.
This is how I work too, is like, do it now or forget it.
Right.
Literally forget it.
Okay. So this is how is a team like an octopus? This was prepared to give at the University of Maryland. So it's got students in mind. And students technically don't have training in how to operate as a team, on a project. The professor will say, do this project. And they're like, how do we do that? How do we organize it? Anyway.
We've been taught to compete in sports.
Yes.
Every man for himself. Yeah.
So the question is, what's group consciousness like? And it does exist. But if you look at nature, you can get an idea of how tight a group mind could be. So the question is, the octopuses are one of the smartest animals on the planet. They have a sense of humor, like you get them in a laboratory. They've done things like waiting till the lab tech is out of the room, climbing out of their tanks, going over, turning the water on in a sink, and then going back into their tank and watching. They come back in. So they're
watching the response.
They are the only animal other than people who, when they're angry at a member of their species, throws rocks at them.
Wow.
So that really qualifies them for being smart, right? So the question I usually ask is, so how many brains does an octopus have? And the answer is 9 brains. There is a separate brain in each leg, and then there's a kind of a central coordinator. It's not really like the command and control system that we have. It's more of a facilitator. And if you look at the way the arms work, the arms are connected to each other and the 9th brain, so they can literally talk to each other, and the 9th brain doesn't even know anything about it.
Wow.
And the 9th brain basically will say something like, hey guys, there is a crab over there, let's go get him, something for dinner. And then the arms coordinate with the information fed to them by the top brain, but the arms take over and coordinate and go grab the crab. And so the problem for people is, if we're all together, how do we create this 9th brain? How do we create that central coordination function?
Where it's a coordination, not a command center.
Right. How do we do that? There is a need to have that central center, but how do we do that? And the octopus has built that up over time. It is interestingly enough, there's a good reason why when you have horror shows and the flying saucers have landed and the creatures come out, they look like octopuses, because the octopus split off from our lineage 800 million years ago, before the Cambrian explosion, before blood was invented. Octopuses have blue blood because it's copper based, and so it's like it's as foreign a thing as you can get, and from us, and yet with a few just small changes in evolution, they might be the dominant creature on the planet.
Wow.
So anyway, this is the lesson. Like, this animal evolved in a group, and so we evolved kind of in a group, but we're missing some things. We got a lot going on the octopus, but there's things we're missing. And so this sociocracy, this is all focused on sociocracy, not its combination with beyond budgeting and agile and all that. And sociocracy has 4 principles. This was all invented by an engineer in Holland. And so it's got a lot of engineering in it, but there's 4 principles in it. And if I were doing this in proper presentation mode, you would see a blank screen here and I'd be clicking things and these would all be coming on. But the key thing is that if you have people who are completely equal, they can't make decisions by majority vote and be equal. You can't make it by consensus, because nobody, agreement doesn't happen all the time, and you get into these intellectual arguments. The U.S. Declaration of Independence says governments exist by the consent of the people, not the consensus of the people. So it's like there's some emotional things. The Dutch vocabulary that I learned makes the emotional connection much more clear than you can do in English. English just doesn't express these Dutch concepts very well. But anyway, so consent, you can make consent decision with your car, and you can't make a consensus decision with your car. If you get in your car and say, car, you agree we got to go down to the store to get milk for the baby, the car is going to go, I don't know. But if you're going down the road and one of the tires blows out, the car just said, I have an objection to going down, here, and you need to handle this objection. It's a systems-based thing. So you get together in circles to make consent decisions. And again, the English word circle ain't it. The Dutch has one word for circle and ring. It's kring. And if in English you say, we're going to have a ring meeting, we have a ringleader, it's like, oh, a ringleader. But if it's a circle leader, it's just crazy. But the Dutch says, we're tight together. We're kind of like octopus-like, but it doesn't have the kind of connotations that English does. So English is crazy. You can't explain this stuff. Circle is not the right word here.
Okay, so we'll have to have more of the heart language, in the emotional language, in the meaning of circle, rather than what we preconceive is.
Yeah. And there's other things, and other things like consent. The way you consent is the lack of an objection, the lack of a paramount objection to some proposal. The mantra is good enough for now and safe enough to try.
There's nothing blocking me from going forward.
I have no objection. But as soon as you say the word objection, you get into trouble, because in English, the word objection is French based, and it's very sterile emotionally. The word in Dutch is no bitsvar. Swar means heavy, so I do not feel made heavy. And that's an entirely different question than do you have an objection, which is all intellectual.
Yeah,
So,
because, you know, I don't know, being an introvert myself, I have a feeling first, a heaviness. I have that heaviness first before I can put it into my thoughts.
right.
Whereas an introvert would have the thoughts to begin with, you know, and be able to object really easily. So this is what's made it entirely different for me to recognize this collaboration that goes on with consent, is that I may not be able to put into words what's blocking me just yet, but there's something going on, and I can say, I object. And then in time, we can come up with what that is in words.
Yes, and there are people who have imitated this, which is great. They use the word consent, but then they'll go on and say, well, let's say what's a valid objection. A valid objection is one of these, and
no,
because if my heavy feeling is not going to meet your term of valid objection, but it's an objection.
Then it's, yeah, then it's like you aren't important what you're thinking. The example that you showed us right off the beginning was the committee that was doing the planting. And you know, when I saw that example of the objection, the person in there that didn't like this particular planting and it was blocking this committee from moving forward, you know, and then as soon as you ask what's going on with that person, it's like, oh, you just made this whole proposal so much better because you've listened to another perspective.
Right.
So the block is not a bad thing. It
No,
actually
you celebrate. Somebody's got an objection. We're about to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to celebrate because we will create something bigger and better. So yeah, it's you know, a whole different way of moving out of voting and majority rules and you know, into this place of collaboration, human collaboration. Sorry, I keep interrupting. I didn't mean to do that.
No, no, you've had experience with this, and so it's great to hear, you know, points that, you know, as I'm talking, you're like, oh yeah, I've seen that work. So it is different. Nobody taught you this in school. When you have larger organizations, you get this hierarchy of work. And one of the ways that you can make sure that feedback is happening that can't be ignored is to have people that are banging the you know, the nails in the wall, sitting there in the same meeting with the guy who is, you know, overseeing all 10 buildings being built and saying, I've got an objection to that order you're putting out, and here's what it is. And it's and you very quickly, the tires that broken get to the, you know, the driver, and you and it's and everybody's,
well, it's even I'm having to saw each one of these pieces of wood by 3/4 of an inch because they don't fit. You want to be in that same meeting instead of having that go through a whole bunch of different channels. Put in a report, it'll get put it on my desk, it'll get to somewhere else. But you want that to stop and to be clearly communicated from one to the other.
And it's subtle. In a lot of large organizations, the managers will say, well, I'm a really good participative manager. And what they mean by that is I can go around and talk to people and ask their opinion and give them the feeling that they're having input, and then I do what I want. That's participative management. That's not this. This is it's kind of like the Kandan cord in Toyota. You can stop it. I object. You got to listen to me. And that makes for a lot better moving things. The fourth one here is elections. It's really fun to elect people by consent. You end up with a feeling of we were together selecting you, and there wasn't a majority minority thing. There were no winners and losers. It's just what we want.
And this is what would come in this challenge itself. Regeneration opportunity for Cardano is rather than a vote, you know, what goes forward is consented. by the whole group, the majority, not the majority, sorry, I didn't mean, it's consented to by everybody.
Yeah.
And that's what'll make it perfect. Well,
and there's
it'll be
yeah.
not perfect, but it'll be
well,
good.
no, it'll never be perfect, thank goodness. But the, like the catalyst circle is meant to be the kind of the preliminary structure for allowing the community to make consent decisions, because a small piece of the community can go there and say, this is our opinion, and then you don't have to have 10,000 people trying to come to a consent decision. You need to break it down so the
into smaller groups, more
smaller
intimate.
groups
Yes.
that are connected by this double linking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really interesting community organizational things that are going on in the world right now based on this double linking stuff, or the linking principle. Like, for instance, in the state of Kerala in the southern part of India, it's about the best run part of India. They have 100,000 neighborhood parliaments, 30, 40 families, and they each elect a representative to a group that represents the 30 or 40 parliaments, and they then elect a representative that goes up another level. And the area in India that handled COVID the best was Kerala, because they knew how to organize things and whip it together. There is a program, an Erasmus grant funding the exploration in Europe of trying to generalize the Kerala model to be used in Europe. It's called Sonic, Sociocracy, Neighborhoods, something or other, in on the continent or something, I don't know. But so there's exploration going on around that. There are some places like towns in Holland that are using consent and this whole bottom-up principle to run, and so it's there. It can get regular governments kind of scared when you talk about that, but the model is there.
Well, I'm thinking about even the challenge itself. Climate change in itself is huge, and it's an impossible problem unless we start looking at focusing in and zooming in on individual areas.
Yes.
And working on those specifically, focused on those. If you look at the whole picture, you get nothing done. You spin around in circles and it's too overwhelming. I may as well go back to bed or play my video game into some other surreals. But if we can take even this whole challenge of coming up with proposals, impact proposals built on Cardano with consent, we have to break this down. How does the admin get paid, out of this budget? How do we make this model? How do we document this model? How do we scale it up? How do we record things like our meetings? How do we share it with others? How does it become open source? So all these different questions become these little circles, and then from there they're focus groups, and then we communicate with the whole through that and make decisions throughout.
And just to let you know, I'm going to be in a heap of trouble if I don't get off this in 7 minutes. So
please. Sorry, let's finish up this.
Yeah, we'll just finish it up. This slide.
Thank you for the heads up.
Yeah, this slide just tells about a bunch of variety of organizations that are typical of what that we've worked with that are using sociocracy in some way. We typically in this do a consent demonstration where I say, bring in a sample decision you want to make in your organization somewhere, or a problem, and we'll all role play your organization, and invariably we end up with the person who brought it in learning a whole bunch and said, wow, we're going to go use this. I even one time had a lady bring into the demonstration whether she should stay with her boyfriend or not.
Wow.
And that was really cool. At a certain point, I took all the women in the group and we put them in a breakout room and said, go solve that. And she ended up deciding to, and she's happily married now.
Nice.
But,
nice. Yeah.
So you can do really heavy stuff. People will have their, people come in to help. You only have advice, and you have the ability to have an objection. And I respect you having objection is something I want to do. So we have a big old long training program that does different things, teaches facilitation. I'm really happy to read that you guys are going to be teaching facilitation in multiple languages and stuff. But that leads on then to becoming like a consultant that can bring all this stuff into organizations.
Well, when somebody finds their Ikigai in this, and because that's what's happened in Cardano for Climate. People come, they love doing something, and then they find their place in this bigger ecosystem. And if maybe someone's going to come in here and go, I love facilitation, I want to make this my business. And this is what we want to have.
Through facilitator certification, looks like it's about 60 hours of training between these two modules, and then practical guidance. There's that much skill involved in the really advanced things, like what do you do in a meeting when you've got conflicting personalities and all that kind of thing. And there's more stuff in here. I'm just skipping through stuff. One of my favorite things, though, is when you're doing consent decision making and you have somebody who says, I think we should do A, and somebody else who says, I think we should do B. People are used to voting on which do we want, or let's have an argument, so to try to convince the other side so we can agree on A or B. And consent decision making says, oh no, we want to do both. How do we do both?
I've been using that. I hear your tone of voice whenever I say that. It's both. Let's do both. And then it's all of a sudden you see, oh, we can do both. Yeah, of course we can.
I want a square. I want a circle. Well, we'll do a cylinder.
That's it. We'll do both.
Yeah. I think there's a bunch of other slides that I could, I would enjoy going through it. It'd probably bore everybody else, but that's a quick look at the slides.
It's good. This is a good, sketch of what's going on and where we're going with this. And, rather than reinvent the wheel as far as learning how to collaborate and, vote on who should be this and how we do this, I just feel very confident from my experience with Sociocracy and with you yourself, John, to say this is what helped me in a tiny way become a leader in Cardano for Climate and to facilitate. I know I'm at this bottom level on the facilitation because I'm still this, I don't recognize the whole system, but if we can start with this and then keep improving and getting better at this, I think this is one of those answers to me that's going to make life a lot easier.
That makes me feel so good that I was able to contribute. One thing I'm working on is a paper that kind of is describing this for DAOs in general. I'm working with a couple other folks, and they are connected to the research DAO. And so one of the things that just occurred to me, we were thinking of putting this into the research DAO and seeing if they would fund some experiments, but we'll just tell them, give us some money and we'll, use your group as one of the the and, maybe they'll fund some
I need to take drugs to facilitate meetings sometimes to facilitate, because on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 is an introvert, 10's an extrovert. I'm a -3 in real life. I'm not a real big people person. So this whole process that from the very beginning allowed me to come out of myself, and you guided me with the leadership, because I'm sitting there going, from my family experience, I can't tell people what to do. My family hates it when I do that. But I've been a supervisor before and in other jobs, where I could get jobs done. But you come into a family and all of a sudden you're a tyrant. So now I'm coming into a different situation. It's like, well, and you caught me on that, says Melanie, sometimes you just have to say, let's do this. And rather than putting everything to consent, there's some things that you just go ahead. And maybe I've shifted too much to like, let's do everything my way, or, I hope not, but there's going to be a balance somewhere in between. And definitely the whole process with you has begun something, and it's always sat with me, the both and.
Thank you.
And that's why I come back to this for such a huge challenge as finding, a group of people that will come to agreement on what we're doing with $250,000 of a fund. Whether or not we get funded is going to be decided within, 3 to 4 weeks. But if not, we're still going to go ahead with this model.
Right.
Because I check out when it comes to voting. when it comes to assessing proposals, I can't do it anymore. I did it for a little while, and it's like, that's not my Ikigai. And you know, the power of my vote, I don't feel like it's big enough to warrant. I'd rather spend my time in connecting people and you know, facilitating collaboration,
right,
than feeling like I have power to vote and change things that way. Because you know, in the last 12 months, no matter what we've done, that vote comes up to something that is it's outside of my power to change in any way, shape, or form. It's as if it's a game, you know, and somebody else is playing the rules.
right.
This creating a collaboration within our group, that I can change and
Yeah,
facilitate.
right.
Whether or not somebody gets funding by a vote, I have no power whatsoever over.
Right,
So
right. And we could, if it was a bottom-up thing all the way up,
yeah.
the voice would get in there.
And then
Yeah.
this will be that model within this
Yeah.
little challenge. It'll be a model and experiment within the experiment.
Right.
Our goal in Project Catalyst is to reach the highest in human collaboration. Voting doesn't do that. It does not bring us to that place.
It is not octopus approved.
Well, even after, I am so not looking forward to the vote being finished and what
Right.
happens to people afterwards. It's this like this amount of work, and then all of a sudden, phew, I'm out of here, you know, or whatever.
Right.
So
Well, I have enjoyed talking with you very much,
yes,
Melanie.
sorry,
As
I gotta
always,
go. You gotta
as
go.
always, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so thank you. And
Yeah,
hello
thank
to
you,
everybody
John.
that watches the video.
Okay. And we'll talk to you soon, and thank you for connecting again.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.